All right, everyone, how are we doing? We are part 2 now of our questions and answers and opinions and all that kind of stuff. John is still here. Asim is here as well. Let's get on with the questions. Okay, number 1, we've got Hail Paradise. I think we touched on something like this last time, John. Hate to say it, but we need to think about who our next captain will be. I love McGregor, but he won't last forever. Who do you think will replace him as captain? What was the consensus that the next captain wasn't already at the club?
Yeah. Everyone's in such a rush, aren't they? Everyone's in such a rush. Everyone take a deep breath and just calm down. I mean, McGregor's only 31, and last week he probably produced one of his best ever performances for us. So I'm not, sundowning Callum McGregor already for me. But I think within the squad, I think the obvious contender is Alistair Johnston for me.
CCV?
Yeah, CCV as well. Yeah, undoubtedly. They're the obvious candidates. But again, it depends on longevity of stay. What are their personal career ambitions? Does Alistair Johnston fancy a go at a Premier League team at some point or something of that ilk? Or does he see his future as, he fancies being Celtic captain and fancies going, writing a wee chapter for himself in Celtic history. Johnston's made no secret of the fact how much he loves the pressure and the status that Celtic has given him since his move from MLS. So maybe he sees Celtic as an endgame kind of destination. So it all depends. But I'm not too hasty and just, quietly shuffling Callum McGregor out the back door quite at this moment.
So if he retired the end of this season, Asim, let's do that. I mean, that's a bit of a pointless question because he's not doing that. But just in terms of who else is a potential captain, Johnson, Carter-Vickers, Greg Taylor.
Greg Taylor, yeah, you could say he's part of the leadership group. Kasper Schmeichel, if he was to stay another season as well. I think CCV's an interesting one because I think by virtue of just his consistency and how he performs on the pitch, he leads by example. But in terms of his kind of personality, he seems quite mild-mannered. And I know that you can get different captains in so many different ways, and there was discussions about whether McGregor would have made a good captain when he replaced Brown. But I think he's been brilliant in his own way, and you can see he's got that kind of respect of the players. He's just a consummate professional in everything he does on and off the pitch. So I think he's been brilliant. But Alistair Johnston is the obvious one. I just think he exudes all the kind of characteristics and personality to be a captain. And as John says, there's no rush. You could end up signing somebody that could come in and be a captain, directly. But those kind of remain the obvious ones. I can't think of anyone else kind of midfield forward that strikes me as being kind of captain material. But Greg Taylor, for all the kind of stick he's had over the last few years, and I'm a fan of him now, and he's definitely grown on me. You definitely see his value in terms of leadership. And I don't know if you've seen Brendan Rodgers' press conference pre the Kilmarnock game. He spoke really highly about him, just how much he's looking forward to continuing wanting to work with him. So I think that says a lot as well.
So what we're saying is it's going to be Kieran Tierney. Is that what we're all coming to the consensus?
Oh, there you go.
Andy Robertson.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Nah, he's older than McGregor. That makes no sense. John McGinn. John McGinley. Maybe. I'll give it a go. Okay. Right, that's a good one, guys. That's a good one. Pierce, Solly, how many, or would any, of Brendan's first team in his first stint at the club get into the current first 11? He says potentially Tierney and Dembele. Sinclair, ? So why don't we just build our team then? So we'll do Invincible season. So just the Invincible season, and we'll do the current team that we're watching. So goalkeeper Schmeichel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was Craig Gordon back then, wasn't it? Or Doris de Vries?
Yeah, it's Schmeichel. Right back is Johnston over Lustig.
Yeah. For me.
I think peak Johnston over Lustig in that season. Yeah, I'm going Johnston.
Carter-Vickers gets in for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a debate to be had over Trusty or Boyata, personally. I know Boyata had a mistake in him. I always quite liked Boyata. You can have Liam Scales if you want.
Could always just give Carl Starfelt a ring if we're building. just cheat a bit. I think there is an argument around that, who Carter Vickers' partner would be. Yeah, that's probably the most difficult position to call. What are your thoughts on it, Asim, on that one?
I think obviously we've not. It's early days with Trusty. If we're going by longevity, Boyata proved it over that whole season how reliable he was. In terms of potential, though, I think Trusty. I love his distribution of the ball, and I like the fact he's pacey and he looks strong. He's got all the attributes of what makes a really good partnership right now. So it might be recency bias, but I'm going to go Trusty.
Okay, I'm going Boyata, so you've got the deciding vote. John, you're going to say Scales, aren't you?
Oh yeah, Liam Scales. No, I would probably say if I had to push come to shove, I'd probably go for Boyata. Yeah.
Okay. Left back is Tierney versus Taylor or Vi. It's Tierney, isn't it?
Tierney, yeah.
Yeah,
Tierney,
it's an easy one. Yeah.
Midfield's an interesting one because our current midfield is so strong. So I'll give you some names and you can tell me whether he would get in the current midfield. So Scott Brown, it's a difficult one, but potentially not, I want to say. I mean, is Brown better than McGregor at the moment?
No, McGregor for me. So McGregor takes that spot. It's difficult. It's so becomes very difficult. Because Scott Brown was so consistent, but then had his limitations as well. But offered something Celtic unique that none of the other players do. I don't think nobody does. Not even Callum McGregor. Scott Brown had something about him that was unique to Scott Brown. So that's a really difficult one.
For me, I would again. I'm always just looking at European football, and as much as Brown had we had a few good performances back then. I just think again, you look at the current midfield and what this midfield can do on a European sense, just because of, like you say, Brown's some of his limitations technically on the ball. And look, I think he was underrated at times with that. I think he was.
He's all right in the Man City game, Asim. I need to
exactly. That's the game I was
thinking.
thinking. That's the game I was actually thinking where I was like, he was brilliant, but. If it was between McGregor and Brown, I'd pick McGregor.
I probably would. Now, Tom Rogic, Stuart Armstrong for me is an interesting one because I know maybe people look now at Armstrong, but Armstrong in that Invincible season was unbelievable.
I think none of these ones are automatic starters over each other, but they would all get plenty of games. Do you know what I mean? But in that sense, they would all play a lot. Stuart Armstrong would play a lot. Rogic would play a lot. Hatate would play a lot. All these players would get a lot of games regardless of what the exact makeup was. I'm obviously, don't get me started on Tom Rogic because we'll be here all night again, but I loved him. I thought Rogic is one of my favourite ever Celtic players, so I'm a little bit biased there. Obviously, perhaps consistency issues, perhaps engine issues, but I would pick Tom Rogic every day in an attacking midfield for me.
Yeah, my dad's the exact same. He puts Tom Rogic in that same category, John. And sometimes I used to be like, it's a bit of an exaggeration. But by the end of his time, I can see why he just brought so much joy over so many years. Just an absolute magician to watch. So I agree with you on that one. I would have him in just for some of his wizardry.
Right, current Kuhn or 16-17 Forrest or Roberts? I think Kuhn. Probably hitting heights that...
Kuhn. Yeah, I would take Kuhn.
Left wing, Sinclair or Maida is an interesting one because Sinclair was unbelievable in that
Sinclair
season.
Sinclair for me, yeah.
I'm going Maeda on that one. I just think it's just so unique as well. Just another totally unique player. I think Sinclair would probably score more goals, but is he offering what Maeda's offering? I think Maeda's got something that no other player... almost no other player in Britain or Europe or anywhere has, and it just adds something special to the team that opens up space for the likes of Kuhn to shine,
I don't know. Sinclair was unbelievable, but the goals were huge, weren't they? But yeah, Maida's just Maida, so...
I mean, no one's complaining if you've got this season's Kuhn on one side and then 16-17 Sinclair on the other side. That's about 60 goals. So nobody would be complaining too much.
Right, the big one up top, Dembele or Kyogo. That's so difficult because Dembele was magic. Dembele was brilliant. Kyogo was unbelievable.
I'm taking Kyogo and then I'm bringing in Dembele for Kilmarnock away.
He did fall away a bit in that season, Dembele. I mean, between like maybe October and December at Ibrox when he scored. I remember him struggling quite badly. He did still end up with like 30 odd goals, which is fair enough, but Kyogo arguably hasn't had the same drop off, maybe, although maybe I think Kyogo's only scored 4 or 5 this season, so God knows.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think, like you say, it's the consistency of Kyogo, but in terms of just some absolute majestic moments from Dembele in huge games. You look at the Man City, some of the but then Kyogo's done it in the derby games as well. Yeah. So it's so tough.
Not scored a hat trick though.
He's not scored a hat trick.
Who do you start? You've got Rangers in the cup final. Who do you start at Hampden, Kyogo or Dembele? I'm starting Kyogo every time for me.
Yeah. Kyogo loves Hampden, doesn't he? He loves Hampden even more than Musa did. So yeah, I'm going Kyogo. I said it. I think he's the best since Henrik. So yeah.
Bring Dembele off the bench for a backheel goal.
I lost my keys that day when Dembele scored that goal. I had to go back into Hampden half an hour later to find them, and I did find them. Hell of a team that. Hell of a team.
Yeah.
I love questions like that. Okay, John, we're talking about Kasper Schmeichel. John saying, how much of a difference, if any, is Big Kasper making to the team? IMHO, he's much better than Hart. We've then got Spooner on a similar note saying, thoughts on Kasper Schmeichel, contract extension, and how long do you think you could keep playing boys or player? So he's just turned 38. I would assume he's got at least one more season in him, given the way he's playing right now, so I'm going to say at least another season. Goalkeepers can play until their early 40s, though, can't he? And he looks brilliant. He looks as good as I've ever seen him. But also, how much of a difference is he making? I'm loath to have anything negative said about Joe Hart, because Joe Hart was brilliant for Celtic. I think Kasper Schmeichel, what you can say, he's been a really top replacement for Joe Hart. What the recruitment team have done, or Rodgers, whoever it was, have done really well with that.
I think Schmeichel's undoubtedly better and more secure in the combinations with teammates passing the ball between them at the back. I think it's undeniable. I think that's a clear upgrade on Hart for me, just in that aspect of his game alone. And he's pulling out some big saves for us. And I think a lot of what he kind of decides what he was doing in his career will also hinge on where he is with Denmark. Obviously, he's still first choice for Denmark. How long does that continue? Where does his motivation go after, where does his motivation go when he's no longer first choice with Denmark? Does he still have the same fire in him? That will be question mark. But I think, as I alluded to on the other video, it's in terms of his contract, it's just the case of him discussing with the club whether he wants to continue and us taking up the option. I don't think we would need to negotiate new terms. So it should be pretty straightforward if he does want to extend his career by a season. Speaking honestly, though, I don't know how far he'll go beyond next season. That could be his last season next season, so I don't think he's here for years and years, but I definitely think we could get another season out of him easily. Yeah.
Do you think we'll be his final club like Joe Hart?
Yeah.
And then he'll turn into the Joe Hart role, Asim, and he'll be talking up everyone else to sign for Celtic.
No, I'm like you, Hamish. I don't want to criticise Joe Hart in any way, but I agree with John. I think it's undeniable. And I think it does make a huge difference to our football, because you remember like Joe Hart against Leipzig away. Look, any keeper can kind of make these kind of mistakes, but I rewatched the game, the 3-1 victory last week when I came back home, and then I watched it again. It was that good. I watched it 3 times now. And the amount of times just having that trust in your goalkeeper and the combinations that you mentioned, allowing us to break the press of what's notoriously a really good pressing team. It just allowed us so much space, allowed the midfielders to drive. It just opened the game up so many times, and I think that's the real big difference when you're playing at the top elite level in European football, is having that composure. And I just think too often, if you've got a goalkeeper who struggles in that sense, you're turning over possession, or you're giving players the ball where they're having to then make a difficult pass. Whereas what Schmeichel can do is evade 2 or 3 players with either a chip ball or play it right through the middle. And I think it's making a huge difference to our style of football this season. But that being said, I absolutely love Joe Hart, and I think he's been brilliant in commentary. He speaks so highly, and it's not just a case of just bigging up Celtic. I think he's very insightful in his comments that he makes when he's running through games. So yeah, big up to both of them. We've done so well when it comes to recruitment, when it comes to goalkeepers.
Yeah, it's mad we've had Joe Hart followed by Kasper Schmeichel. Imagine you'd said that a couple of years ago when we had that Greek guy in goals. It's been a hell of a journey we've been on, but it's fabulous. And maybe we'll see Sinizalo a bit more as we go forward. Maybe next season we'll see a bit more of him. Might see him in the Scottish Cup. I've got a feeling we might see him in a couple of the Scottish Cup rounds. Yeah. Okay, this is one for me. Erin, Jack, just a bit more of a personal question, this one, but as someone who's always wanted to move away from Glasgow, but always thought I'd miss Celtic too much, can you please give us an insight into life as a Celtic fan on the other side of the world? How are the club perceived by general football fans in Oz? What's it like watching the news, etc., for football not even being the second biggest sport, not even being the fifth biggest sport here? Also, I don't use social media much anymore, but I'm guessing that would be your best friend with Celtic related stuff. It looks like more of a commitment now for you to support Celtic, but I'm wondering if you feel that way. Yeah, Erin, the big thing I would say is the kick-off times. Pretty obvious, but you guys will hear people talking about the kick-off times, but until you actually experience a major game kicking off at 2 a.m, you won't know how difficult it is to, especially when you love your sleep, to get up, not just to get up, but to concentrate on the game as well and get fully into it at that time. It was more of a struggle last season when the team were not playing the football they have been this season. But generally, if you're thinking about moving, Erin, I don't know if you are, I would go for it. I thought I would miss going to games more, if I'm honest. I thought I'd really miss going to Celtic Park, and to be honest, there's only been the occasional game, probably like the cup final. I remember thinking I would have loved to have been at that, and games like Leipzig, you miss it those nights, and some of the derbies. But generally, just getting to see the games has been nice, and in a weird way, sometimes the kick-off time's good because you're never doing anything at midnight, so you always get to see it. Whereas maybe back home, you'd be missing a family get-together or something like that. So I think it's been fine. In terms of keeping up with things, it's probably the same as you guys, because you guys will get your news from online and you know, X and all of these places and WhatsApp, people sharing stuff. So I don't miss out on anything like that. I think it's probably a bit more of a commitment. I've got a lot of respect for people that have done this their whole life. I think it's a hell of an effort. Yeah, but generally I would just go for it. I think there's certain challenges, but worth it to see Celtic performing. But thanks for that question. Okay, David, opinion. Kuhn has had more of a meaningful impact on Celtic than Jota did in his entire Celtic stay. It's a bit much, that, for me, David. Jota was a fabulous player.
Everyone's in such a rush. Like I just said before, you know, I mean, Jota did it for 2 seasons, was very consistent for us, I felt. Even through the period where people thought he was having a dodgy spell, he just offered so much to the team. And I would, you know, I think Jota's, Kuhn has to first do it over a period of more months than now. He needs to double this period. He needs to do it over the course of a whole season, and then another season for him to be up there. But that takes nothing away from Kuhn. I think he's been electric for us. He's been so impressive and exciting, and I can kind of understand in the sense that the impact has been immense and at the elite level as well. Like, he's just been tearing teams apart. So I kind of understand, but Jota just does, you know, he did it on loan, and then the season when he was here as a permanent player, he was outrageous. So I'm not quite having that one.
Okay, Asim, Jungle Jim, wondering what's been your favourite period watching Celtic in your lifetime and why?
Yeah, I think I've kind of spoken about this previously as well. I make no kind of denial that it was the Martin O'Neill era. It was just, for me, it was I kind of started supporting Celtic just before Martin O'Neill came in, so it wasn't the best of times when I first started supporting Celtic. I remember watching Rangers win the league at Celtic Park 3-0, and that was my first season with a season ticket. And then in comes Martin and just totally changes the landscape. You know, he just brought in heavyweights in terms of characters, personalities. We obviously had the King of Kings. I had the joy of watching him, you know, throughout his career at Celtic, and it was, you never take it for granted going to Celtic Park back then and just watching him perform. It was a thing of joy. And then to take us obviously into Europe again, we'd had such a dry spell in terms of European football for so long, and he made Celtic a household name in the Champions League. I know we didn't qualify under him, but just some of those nights he gave us, and then obviously the Seville run. It was just a magical time being a Celtic fan again and being proud of your team, being proud of your team in Europe, and putting what was a very good Rangers team at the time, back in their place. It was, to be fair, like, we've had some great times since, but I think for me, until we kind of reach that same level again in terms of European football, I'll always hold that as kind of my favourite period of sport in Celtic.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I'm just all everything Asim said there about the O'Neill years is spot on, and then just added to that, obviously the European results under Strachan. One season that doesn't get talked about a lot is because we didn't win the league, but Lennon's first season was felt exciting. Amazing. And electric in a different way. They really got the heart pumping, and obviously 07-08 is, I've spoke about that on here before, but that was just a magical time and a crazy ending to the season that you kind of can't replicate. We might not replicate that again. Like that win over Rangers at Celtic Park with Big Jan's last minute goal was just one of the most insane derby victories I've ever seen. I think people talk about the 6-2 and obviously the results under Rodgers and the 3-0 under Ange, but that night you felt like you were levitating to heaven at the end of that one. It was unbelievable, that one. The excitement that night was unparalleled almost for me. So that's another one as well.
Yeah, I've got a few. I mean, I love the kind of Gordon Strachan days, probably just because that was my first season ticket, and I would go every weekend with my dad and really, enjoy those games. And maybe the football wasn't particularly great, but I was that young that I probably didn't appreciate that. I just loved the atmosphere, and Celtic Park used to be packed every single week, a bit like it is now, to be honest. But it was sold out every single week. For those games. I love the Ange period as well, working 67 Hail, doing the videos, enjoying all that football. That was an amazing period to look back on. I think a lot of us will feel the same way in years to come. I also loved this Celtic Live period as well, John, with you during was a Ronnie Dyla days, but quieter back then. But I think it's the people that make it, to be honest, in a weird way. Like, I think it's the people you go to the games with and people you meet before the games and after games or during the games in that case.
I mean, that
so
was,
many amazing memories.
From a personal perspective, that was obviously a surreal period for me in terms of and you, because we were working behind the scenes on match days, on a weekly basis, and that was almost a lifelong dream in terms of, the personal passion of Celtic crossing over with kind of work stuff, and it was just a crazy period. And then we went away from that just as Brendan Rodgers was coming in. But Brendan Rodgers coming in was such an exciting shot in the arm for Celtic. That Invincibles season was just incredible as well. That really felt like an echo of the O'Neill years as well. So, but it all goes back to the O'Neill years. That is the foundation of everything over the last 2 decades. And I concur with Asim that is still the elite period to be a Celtic fan.
I think he's right though as well, in the sense that sometimes it's not even so much what happens in terms of the football or like how successful you may have been. It's personal to each individual as to where they are in their life at that point, their memories that you have. So that's why for me, like, that was my first kind of memory of going to Celtic Park with my dad, and I'll always just hold that, as such an important and special part of my life. And likewise for you, Hamish, it'll be the Strachan years and stuff like that. So all these things factor. And then you're right, the Ange period, because again, it was the kind of first time for me getting involved in the YouTube stuff and just, connecting with so many fans and the whole kind of energy and the way we came back to win that first season at Tannadice under Ange. So yeah, there's so many, and I guess we're blessed in the last 20 odd years to have so many different experiences to share in memory.
What's funny is we've mentioned every manager from the last 20 years. So basically, every single moment of the last 20 years has been our favourite time to be following Celtic. And for me, it goes right back to Tommy Burns. That's who I was a wee boy growing up idolising, that team. And that felt exciting and urgent as well, because they were really pushing to stop Rangers winning 9, and it just felt so exciting that period. That Tommy Burns team was, had Paolo Di Canio, George Cadet, like Pierre Van Hooijdonk. Those players were true cult heroes of the sport at that time as well, and brought the same kind of excitement that we're seeing today. So all of it has been incredibly exciting, and perhaps apart from one, which was the Tony Mowbray disaster, that's probably the only one that looking back on fondly. Yeah.
Listen, I enjoyed the Wembley Cup. I'll have you know, I really enjoyed my trip down to Wembley. Okay, Paul McGuinness, question for Hamish. Would you rather be thought of as a funny man or a great boss? Paul, my answer is always the same to me. They're not mutually exclusive. And finally, Gigpod can finish. For once, a question from me, Stevie. 4 best foreign Celtic midfielders since 2000. By that, I mean centre mid and not left or right mid. So Stevie's also provided some answers, guys. In fact, do you want to, have you guys had, well, you've not had a chance to ask him. John, have you had a chance to think?
Yeah, but it depends what he means by centre midfield as well. Is it attacking one? Is it? I mean, but for me,
so he's got a bit of everything.
For me, off the top of my head, it would be Moravcik, Nakamura, Petrov, and if Matt O'Reilly, if he counts as Danish. If not, I would probably go with Tom Rogic. Yeah. But,
Stevie's got Petrov and Rogic. He somehow overlooked Moravcik and Nakamura. He's got Wanyama and Hatate in there. I don't know what's going on with him. What is going on with Stevie at the moment? He's got Hatate but not Nakamura. Oh, Nakamura was he more of a right mid?
He played on the right, but he did play centrally sometimes as well. So I'm counting him anyway. If Stevie's not counting him, I am.
He's going to be raging watching this because I've called him out, and he will have thought of Nakamura. Asim?
Nakamura was not played enough, essentially, in my opinion. I think he would have been brilliant if he was played more often there. So that's why I won't put him in there. I didn't see enough of it. But Petrov, 100%. He's in there. One of the best box-to-box midfielders of that time. You don't see many players like that now that could literally do a bit of everything. So he's in there. Moravcik, again, genius. Was it 4 in total? Yeah. So Moravcik, Petrov, Victor Wanyama, an absolute presence, a powerhouse in there. Again, a player that I feel like over the years that's the kind of player we've needed. And then the final one, Matt O'Reilly, I would say, just for his all round game, and I think he's got brilliant to see him score at the weekend. I think he's going to go on to bigger and better things as well. So yeah, that's my 4.
I'm taking Matt O'Reilly over Hatate every day as well. I don't know what Stevie's doing with that one.
I'm sure he'll have some caveat. He'll be in the honestly, everyone, he'll be in the comments under this video defending himself. I can guarantee it. I've not even had time to think about this. For me, Wanyama would be in there. Moravcik, was he central? Yeah. Are you guys happy with that?
Yeah, he played as like a 10. He played as like a 10. He was a luxury player though. It's rare you'd kind of get players like that in this day and age.
We played a 3-5-2 then, so the wide players were wing backs, bombing forward, and then we had Moravcik ahead of like Lambert and Lennon, or Petrov as well. Yeah.
Petrov would be in there, and probably Rogic as well. So I think I've agreed with 3 of Stevie's 4. It's weird because you think of a lot of players like Neil Lennon and players like that, but obviously not foreign technically. Ki Sung-young keeps coming into my mind, but he's obviously not at that level. Okay.
He came in with a lot of hype, didn't he? Because he was a £10 million signing for AC Milan, Massimo Donati, and then obviously we got him a couple of years later, but this didn't ever fulfil the hype.
Well, I was about to get Donati on for an interview ahead of the Atalanta game because he played for both teams. He never replied to me, so I might cut his bit out fully from this. He doesn't deserve to be on. Was him and his 5 different hair colours that he had. Okay, guys, I think we'll leave it there. I really appreciate you joining me for the last couple of videos. I know it's quite late where you are, so it's much appreciated. Thanks to you as well for watching this. We'll keep the videos coming to some extent during the international break, and then we'll get properly into it with Hearts next Saturday. Thanks, everyone. Catch you soon.